Hey guys, my name is xOctoManx and this is part 3 of my Diablo style RPG game tutorial series. This again is a Patreon supported tutorial series, so if you want to support me as well on patreon.com/xOctoManx, you have the possibility to do so. What I want to do in this video is I want to go over cursors. Usually in Diablo and any other games like whatever, Torchlight and so on, you're gonna hover with your mouse over any kind of object, and this object, no matter what it is, if it is a chest, you might want to have a grabbing hand icon on your mouse cursor. If there is an enemy, you want to have maybe some swords like an attack cursor and so on and so forth. Maybe a chest, you want to have some kind of loot bag cursor and so on and so forth. And if there is any unknown stuff, you might want to use a magnifier glass on your mouse or even a question mark symbol. And if there is an NPC, you want to have a quest bubble or a talking bubble or whatever. So what I want to do today, I want to write the first system we're gonna use, or actually have the possibility to use that cursor system later on in any other projects as well. And there are a lot of possibilities to do so, since we have a lot of on-mouse, on-mouse enter functions and so on and so forth, and on-mouse exit and so forth, and so on and so forth. But I don't want to use that because this always requires that this component would be needed to be on any object in the scene or in the game. Also, there would be a problem when we use those. We wouldn't just reset the cursor back to its normal when we are not actually over this particular object. So what I want to do is I want to create one small script with you together, of course, where we are creating this component or this script, this system, which is independent from anything else we just created, and we can, again, as I said before, implement that as well and in any other project. So the first thing we want to do is we want to create a textures folder. I already have this one in here. And in the scripts folder, I want to make sure that I create a folder called systems. In that systems folder, again, there will be battle system later on maybe, or whatever we're gonna create of kind systems. And again, we're gonna keep this structure organized or as organized as possible. So in that systems folder, there will be any independent system directly inside, so you can create a lot of subfolders in here and so on and so forth. Okay, so at first we need textures. I was actually creating some of them, so I need to import them. As you can see, they are here. So I need to go and drag them directly into the scene. You don't need to take care of what they are about, just make them independent per the cursor you just create. And the background is going to be a transparent one, so it's has alpha inside. So what I want to do is I want to drag those three currently inside my textures folder in here. I can also again keep this one as organized as possible, so maybe inside that I want to create another subfolder for textures of type, or I just call them cursors. And what I can do right now is I can just take all of those and drag them directly in the cursors. So any other texture type is not interfering the cursors as well. Also, we can place in later on any cursors, new cursors we want. This system we're gonna create is a multi-conform system, so you can always add more to the list, and I will show you how this is going to work. But at first we need to make sure that we set all that cursors up correctly. As you can see, I have imported those, and those became automatically the size of 265 by 265, because I guess I'm using Unity 5.6, so make sure as the best would be you already create the cursors to that particular size. Also, what you can see, it sets automatically to texture type default, but we want to change this one to cursor. And we want to do that for all the other textures in here as well. We're gonna set them to cursor. And apply the changes, of course. After that, we want to make sure that alpha is transparent. What we also want to do is, or actually what we don't want to do, we don't want to generate bitmaps. So disable this function in here, but we will encounter later on a lot of import setting errors when we are not selecting read, write enabled. So make sure that you enable this one, otherwise the console will fill up with a lot of error message, or actually warning messages that you have wrong imported settings. Okay, so apply the changes in here, and what you can see now is they are transparent in the background, and the color actually for mine is just black, as you already have seen in the folder. You can always go in and paint them whatever you like and please, and also can go to the asset store, buy some. Use Inkscape to create your own texture library of cursors and so on and so forth. You have a lot of possibilities. I just wanted to make sure that this one is as simple as possible and as best understandable for you. Okay, so what we now do is we create an empty game object in here, which is actually our game controller object, which we're gonna take later on in between the scenes, or it will have to be in every scene we're gonna have, in every map, and so on and so forth. So we might want to create a prefab out of this one later on, so everything changes inside is also applying to any other scene where this game controller object is going to be in. You can also name this one game manager or whatever you please and like. And again, you can also make a special symbol in front, so you know, okay, this is a special game controller, or a special controller, or a game object, or whatever. You can reset this one to 0 if you like to. You don't need to. I just do that. So it's sitting somewhere there. We can also give it an icon over here, so you can see, okay, we have a game controller inside the scene. It doesn't really matter actually where it is. We just need to make sure that we have something to put our script or our systems on. Especially for the cursor one, we need to make sure that this is in the scene. Okay, so what we now do is we create a new script. So we go to our scripts folder, systems folder, and create a new C# script. And we can call this whatever you want. We can call this cursor manager if you like to. I guess that's a nice name. You can also name it my cursors, but do not name it just cursors, because this is a protected, I believe, static class directly driven by Unity, so or actually used and needed by, so you don't want to have any errors in the scene when you're naming this one. So I just named this one cursor manager. I guess that's a good name for this. I hope you do that as well, or actually about the same. Do not name it just cursor, because again, this is a protected one. Driven by Unity. Okay, what we do is we drag this cursor manager script right now on our game controller, and we open this one up, and once it's done, we'll be back. I'm gonna zoom in a bit so you can see stuff better in here. Maybe not that big, or actually it doesn't really matter. So what we want to do is we want to create an extra class inside the cursor manager class, which is maybe just called the cursor, and it needs to be public. So we create our own class we can actually have access to, and I will explain why we're gonna do that. So I call the class the cursor. So this cursor will actually hold all possible cursors we're gonna have. We don't need to inherit from anything, so it's just an empty class now. What we want to do is we want to create a public string, and I call this string just tag. So what we're gonna do is wherever our mouse is on, it will check for this tag, and depending if the tag is applied to wherever our mouse is over, we're gonna apply the cursor texture to our mouse. So, and how can we do that? Of course, with a texture 2D. And I call this one just cursor texture, like that. So now we need some place where we can actually take care of all the tags and the cursor texture in this case, so we can store this one inside a list or an array, or use anything. I use lists because I like them, and they are I just like them. So we create a public list of type, And the type is going to be the cursor, since this is a class we just created over here. So we can use that as a type, so we have direct access to the string inside and the texture 2D. Later on we might go and change the system a bit, but for now we're gonna use it as I show you. And we call this one just maybe cursor list, so we know, okay, the cursor list contains everything about cursors. And we say is equal to, and then we create a new instance or a new list of type cursor with open close parentheses and close the line with a semicolon. When I now save this one, you guess that you're gonna see the list in the game controller. But after the compiler is completed, you will see that it is not showing up. As you can see, it's still empty, the compiler is done, it's not showing. This happens because we created a custom class which contains different stuff Unity is not able to serialize. So what we need to do is we say system in square brackets system.serializable. You can also add the system namespace directly in the top over here, so you just need to go in and type serializable, but actually it doesn't really matter because it's just that one call. When I now save this one, you will see in a moment, once the compiler is completely running, you can see here's our cursor list right now, just because it wasn't serializable. When I now enter a size of 1, we're gonna have an element 0 inside, and in here we can now pass over the tag we want to react to and the texture we want to apply when we are hovering over this particular tag. The first one is going to be an empty tag because it does not need any specials, except you want to change this, but I recommend use this one as an empty one, and the second space is actually going to be the basics, the standard cursor, this one. So just that cursor normal in my case is going to be in the first element in the list, because we're gonna recommend, or actually we set this one directly at start, and of course while we are in the update loop in a moment. So what we can do is actually we can create a list of 3 elements in here. It will automatically copy all of that stuff inside, but what we can do is actually pass over the cursor for attack and maybe the cursor for magnifier glass. We don't go over and use this today, but actually when the system is set up, you can use that however you like and please. So every cursor, or actually every cursor now can have one specific tag. If you want to have more tags, you're gonna need to create a string array or string list inside the class, so you can choose more tags. I'm going to show you this one. So as you can see, we have a string in here, but if I would go and add some angled brackets in here, or this one, and call this one instead of tag just tags with an S, we go, and don't forget to save and let the compiler run. We should have a tag array or string array inside of here, so we can set this one to a specific tag list again and enter as many tags as we want, for example a size of 10. So the first cursor, the normal one, could have 10 different tags. I don't go over and do this today because I guess we don't need that, or not much. Maybe later on we're gonna re-enter this one as well. So I just do it with one single tag at first and for now. So let the compiler run once again and let him destroy all the arrays we just created, or I just created in here. I just wanted to show you the possibilities of that particular system and what we can do with it. Okay, so the first one, the first element in here, we're gonna have the tag in the beginning. So the cool thing about having the tag in the beginning, which means in the top of our class in here, we're gonna rename the element name in here automatically to whatever the tag is. So if it's null in here, and this will be tagged as null, or actually renamed to null. But we don't need to, so we're gonna empty this one out. We can actually rename it to whatever we want, since the first one does not matter for us. The second one is going to be when we are hovering over an enemy. So we have the enemy tag we just created in, I believe, the first or second video. Not sure which one. I believe it was the first one. Yes. In the first video of that series, we just created this enemy tag with a big E in the beginning. So when we are going over with a mouse over an NPC or over an enemy, which is currently represented by this cylinder in here, we're gonna change the cursor to cursor attack. And maybe if we have maybe a chest or something, or I don't know, whatever you want to tag your game objects later on with, just in case. This is going to be a chest, then we can easily go and do this one as a cursor magnifier glass. Okay, so also later on we need to go and fiddle around what we're gonna do when we are clicking around and when we are hitting that specific tags again in the move and attack script we just created, or click to move stuff and so on and so forth. Maybe again we're gonna change the system a bit or make some other decisions depending on what we need and like. Okay, so what we want to do is in start we want to set our cursor to the first cursor in the list. So what I want to do is I want to create a new function, and here I call this one set cursor texture. No, open close parentheses, of course, it's of type void because we don't return anything, we just set something. What we want to do is we want to say cursor with a big C dot. Now we call the function set cursor, and as you can see it requires a texture 2D, a vector 2 for a hotspot, so where it currently is positioned at, and the cursor mode. So we're gonna select this one, open close parentheses, and inside we're gonna take the texture. So where we got the get the texture is we're gonna fill in one argument of type texture 2D, call it just tags. So in the first one in here we're gonna require tags. Then we say comma. Next one is a vector 2, so wherever the hotspot is. In our case it is going to be vector 2 dot 0. So we zero this one out. We don't need anything or any offset or anything else. So it's just vector 2 dot 0. For crosshairs it would be different, but we don't have a crosshair, so it's vector 2 dot 0. And the cursor mode is going to be set to be auto. So cursor mode dot auto, like automatic. There, so it will automatically change between software and hardware dependent cursors however we like and please. In the update, or actually for now for the start function, we want to set the cursor, so we call set cursor texture, open close parentheses, and inside we want to pass over the cursor lists item 0, so in square brackets dot 0, and in here we're gonna take the cursor texture we just have inside. Let's test this one out pretty quick. So when we are starting the game, of course, let Unity compile everything. And when it's done, I'm gonna press play. And I should see, instead of the Windows mouse, I should see my own mouse, as you can see over here. One more thing I want to test, if I go and maximize on play, as you can see, the mouse is not changing. It's not too big, not too small, whatever, and it is overlaying everything we want to have. So we have now our first own cursor inside. So now let's see how we can actually check what the cursor is when we are changing this one in the update function. So when we hover over a specific object, enemy, whatever. So what we're gonna do is we use the ray casting system once again. So we create a new ray. I call this one just ray. It's going to be equal to camera with a big C dot main dot screen point to ray, and in open close parentheses we type in input dot, and what we want to get is the mouse position. So that's a vector 3, actually returning to wherever our mouse is pointing, and we want to create that ray to that position wherever it is. Now we need a hit, or actually a ray cast hit. I call this one just hit, as we already did. And now we want to test, or actually permanently check where or what the raycast system is going to hit. So if physics dot raycast, open close parentheses, and we take as first argument is going to be our array we just created to the screen pointer array, comma, then we type in out hit, comma, and then we're gonna need the maximum distance. In my case, I guess we're gonna take 1000. So we limit the array actually when it's not hitting anything. And that's everything what we need currently for the raycast. We can later on also go and use layers for this one, but I guess we don't need to. Well, at least not for the moment. So what we now want to do is we need to loop through the complete cursors list and see if the object we are currently looping through has the specific tag we actually just accessed. So what we do is we create a little for loop. We could also use a for each loop, but they have sometimes trouble here and there. We create a new integer of I. We're gonna start at 0. We could also start at 1, but I want to make sure that we don't have any overlay or actually overflow later on. So yeah, while I is smaller than our cursor list dot count, so the length of the list, we're gonna increment I. And now the fun part begins. Well, we want to test what is our hit going or getting back as an information. So we check if hit.collider, so if there is this collider and this particular object has a specific tag, we want to test against the cursor list in square brackets I, so we the one we just currently loop through. So in this case, when we start at 0, it will look into the cursor list 0 dot, and now we want to test for the tag we just created inside the list in Unity itself in the editor, or actually in the inspector, when this is going to match wherever we are currently looping through. Then we want to set the cursor texture, depending on that of course, to the cursor list in square brackets I dot cursor texture. Also what we want to do is we want to stop at this point, so we're gonna return. Return means we're gonna leave the complete if statement in here. That means we have found something, we're gonna return, and we start new in the next frame of the update loop. After this particular if statement, I want to make sure that I set the texture once again to cursor list square brackets 0 dot the cursor texture. Why do I want to do that? If this raycast does not have anything and is not returning, we're gonna go forward and come to this spot. If we don't come to that spot, it's not going to be the normal one, because we're gonna return in this one. If it is not returning anything actually, or it does not find the correct tag or a tag from our cursor list, we're gonna go to this point and set our cursor back to normal. Don't forget to save the script, and let's get back to Unity and test what we have done so far. Let Unity compile everything and press play. So at start once again, we're gonna have our usual cursor as we already created, but also while we are just moving around here, the cursor is checking the whole time if there is any tag under our mouse when we are hovering over something. And we know our cylinder in here has a tag enemy. So when I hover over this one with the mouse now, you can see it's automatically changing to my mouse pointer with the small crossed sword icon inside. Also, you can see when you're going through that, it is in the top left corner, there is our hotspot actually. So top left corner is vector 2.0. That's the hotspot we're gonna be after, or have been after actually. So again, as you can see now, it's working pretty nice with the cursor, and we can actually create a lot of more instances, or maybe objects actually, like a cube for example, which we can use or could use as a chest for example, or maybe something you want to look at, or there's a quest part or something you want to you need to look at when it is part of a quest, for example. So what we can do is we can actually tag this thing here. We're gonna add a new tag and maybe create a chest tag, as I just explained beforehand. So if this is tagged as a chest, and I go to my game controller and make sure that the chest is written the same as the object is in here, can also maybe go and stretch this one a bit. I don't know. It doesn't really matter where it is and how it is. We can actually test if our mouse is still working on this one. So now you can see when I hover over this box, we have the magnifier glass. If I go away, then I have my normal one. And if I go to this one, I have my attack one. Again, this is now a multi-conformable or multiple usable function or system in this case, where we can add a lot of more cursors inside. And every frame it's going to check where our cursor currently is, how they are looking or whatever, and you can react to that as well if you like to. In the next one, I believe we go a bit deeper inside the movement functionality. So my Patreon actually requested to have this one or create this one a bit more like Diablo 2, I guess. So what we will do later on is, of course, we go and add more functionality to our cursor or to our click to move functionality in here. So instead of fire 2 for walking around, I want to choose, or we're gonna use fire 1 in this case, which means it is the left mouse button. Well, I guess so. Let's test this one out pretty quick. So we can actually walk around now with the left mouse button. And when we're gonna go later on into the attack mode and so on, we want to make sure that we also have a right click, so we have maybe ranged attacks, and holding down the shift button will make attack or make the attack possible when we are directly where we are looking at. So while holding down shift and maybe moving the mouse, the character should rotate around itself directly on the spot wherever it is and do the attack animation and all the other things. But again, this is part of the next video. I hope you enjoyed this one, and once again, feel free to become my patron as well and support this and maybe other video tutorials in the future. Also, you will have early access, of course, when you are at least a $5 Patreon as well. So you get all that videos faster than the guys directly on YouTube. So you decide what you want and like. Otherwise, you have to wait, well, longer than others, or actually longer than Patreons. Thanks for watching the tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Thumbs this video up if you like it, and feel free to become my patron or donate by using PayPal to support me and my channel in the future. All links will be below in the description. See you in the next tutorial. Bye bye.